Grand rising, everyone. I'd like coming to you live, spirit and coffee. Got my coffee here. Yum. All right, we'll see who shows up. Definitely far and few between, not very consistent with spirit and coffee, as you know, but that's fine. Sometimes we just have a little break or we are trying to figure out what our next steps are in life. Definitely have transitioned into new spaces and places and listen to an old podcast and thinking, wow, you can see the expansion of consciousness, and the evolution of thought process, from my earlier videos. And so that's part of alchemy, right? We don't stick to one way. If there's a different way that shows up and it adds value and allows the consciousness to expand, I adopt those things. I'm not just this is the only way to do it. There's multiple ways to do things, not just one. And so I always expand consciousness. And so the way that I shape the world and way I think, will change over time as I gather more information, as I read, as I learn. And you see this later on in life as people transition through their life, right? They go through what we call rites of passage. We used to have rituals and rites and all that kind of stuff where people were thinking different and they thought, when you were a kid, you thought, oh, I'm always going to think this way. I'm always going to like this. I'm always going to do that. And then you get older and you're like, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. Right. So when I was young, I liked to go out. I was very social. I was always around people. I wanted to get out and be active. And now I'm more at home and at peace with myself and wanting to refine my internal, um, being. And so I stay home a lot and I enjoy that and I drink my coffee and I read. And so that there's a big shift, right, in our consciousness as we get older and transition. And so you can kind of see through my podcast that kind of evolution and how it's transitioned. But today, and the reason I got on is because, I've been going through, some things, in terms of really, getting my life on track and living authentically who I am, which is not easy for most people to do. And I can say that I feel really blessed and honored because I am closer to my authentic self than I have ever been before. And I am actually doing the work that I believe I was called to do in life. And sometimes it takes time for people to really, do that. And sometimes people never get there, right? Sometimes people are just constantly doing the things that they don't want to do. But it's been a long struggle. And as you see the evolution, right, which is why I did live videos so people can see that life is alchemy in motion. And this is why alchemy is in everything because it is alchemy. We Things are constantly changing. We're never the same person we were before. We're constantly adding new things in, taking things out. We're in a different state of mind. Some people regress, some people progress, and back and forth. Sometimes we go backwards 10 steps and then we take 20 steps forward. Life is like this ebb and flow, and it does this dance, the cosmic dance, and we're part of that. And that's what alchemy is. So we shift and we change, and I shift and I change, and I listen to people, and if people have different ideas, then I'm like, okay, well, let's look at that. So for me, I was in the shower today and I've been having this kind of issue with getting up and getting ready in the morning. Like I got comfortable. I think as COVID happened, more and more people were working from home. We got to stay in our PJs, and I think I just kind of rode that out for a very long time. And I think I was enjoying it, right? I enjoyed putting on my robe and just chilling out. And I don't know if people have a robe, but I highly recommend you get a robe. But you may never do anything if you have a robe because I just want to stay in my robe and be cozy and comfortable all the time. So, but when I was taking a shower today, and this has been an issue, is that I don't want to get up. I stay in my robe, I do my work, but I just somehow feel depressed by the middle of the day. Like I'm like, man, I've done all this stuff, but I don't feel accomplished. And then I take a shower, and so I was like, all right, I'm gonna start getting up, taking a shower, getting ready, putting on my clothes, all the stuff, all the things, in the morning. And I noticed that when I was in the shower, that I was trying to rush it. And I had this anxiety, like I just want to get this over with and get on with my day. And I started to have this flashback of when I was a child. And the flashback was, I was like 2 years old and I couldn't dry my own back. So I called my mom. I was like, Mom, and she used to come in and dry my back for me because I had issues drying my back. I was a child. So, but I remember my dad got really upset about that and he yelled. So my dad was very, very not very kind person. If he ever saw this, he might get hurt that I said that, but he wasn't. He wasn't a very kind person. He was very harsh and he yelled and he got upset and he said, you could do it yourself or whatever and this and that. And I got very like anxiety. Well, somehow that ignited something in me this morning. And I'm like, why am I having anxiety to hurry up and get out of here? And I don't want to dry myself. I just want to hurry up and get out. And I realized that there was this toxic masculine energy within me. Now, people talk about the toxic masculine as though it's a man thing, it's only for men. That's not true. We hold toxic masculine energy with both men and women because in our being, in our state of being, we have a mother and father within us. Okay. Now, they call it reparenting yourself in therapy, which that's fine. If you're in therapy, you'll know that. But I, in an esoteric way, in an alchemy way, talk about it the sacred feminine and sacred masculine. And it exists within our consciousness, it exists within us. And those energies allow us to be really kind to ourselves or really unkind to ourselves. And then what happens is we project that outward, whatever's coming up for us. So the toxic masculine within me was hindering my ability to actually give myself grace. And that was like a big aha moment for me this morning. I was like, whoa, like that's deep for me, right? Because I'm like, my toxic masculine internally was shutting down my sacred feminine of kindness and compassion and gentleness and grace. And I couldn't even enjoy the towel, right? Because a towel is soft against the skin. It's a very feminine thing, right? The sensuality, the physical touch um, of against the skin, the soft, cozy stuff, the robe, right? That's like a mother, warm hug of a mother. So I couldn't even accept that. I literally was like trying to get through it so fast and I had all this anxiety and I'm like I always have anxiety when I have to like get in the shower and I was like, well, that's why. Because in the external world, I saw my parents, right? And my parents were sort of the guidepost for me in my internal sacred feminine and masculine. How would I treat myself internally was based on how my parents treated me. And that's what I embody, right? I embody what I've learned from them, what it means to be man, what it means to be woman. But the reality is the true magic and the true alchemy happens when we, in our internal, accept or deny that toxic feminine or masculine. And we look internally and we say, wow, am I giving myself grace? Now, here, then it went even further. And I thought, wow, no wonder, right? We are living in such a toxic environment of war and people fighting with each other and all this. It's because people internally are are letting that toxic masculinity circulate within them. They're not giving themselves grace, right? As within, so without. So we can say and probably conclude that most people, if we're at war, most people are experiencing this toxic masculinity internally, okay? Not externally, not as a gender, more as an energy force, okay? And what it does is it stifles that emotional intuition, the grace and the kindness and compassion and empathy. All those things are very sacred feminine qualities. And if you look at society in general, you can see that, especially in the Western world, it wasn't okay to have emotion, very mechanistic way of thinking. This is an old paradigm, but we're still living under it for whatever reason. But that everything is mechanistic, right? Everything's mechanical. It's all objective, which took out, it's all scientific, it's all left brain, which took out the intuition. It was like emotions don't matter. But now we're trying to redeem ourselves because we realize we can't get away from emotion. Emotion is one of the biggest parts of the human experience. And it's so critical that we go through these emotional experiences, because what they do is they help us to expand consciousness. They allow us to move into spaces that we had never moved into before. It sort of allows us to, it's almost like this elastic, right? We pull it and we expand it. And now we have the capacity to hold more. That's literally the sacred feminine. Think about the womb of a mother. We can put it into gender to kind of understand this, but the womb of the mother expands to hold that new birth. And when we do this, we hold the space for new creativity, new possibility, new happenings. When we contract it and we suffocate it, well, we no longer have access to possibility. We stifle ourselves from that opportunity to show up in our life. So a good question in yourself would be, is where is this toxic masculine showing up? And is it suffocating or killing off my ability to give myself grace? Because we deserve to give ourselves grace. If we can give ourselves compassion and grace and love, and learn to love ourselves, which as within, right? Then we can express that outwardly. But if we are ridden with anxiety and wanting to get it done right now, move, 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 which is a very masculine principle, it's not a wrong thing. It's only when it's toxic to your environment and you, and it and when it's forceful rather than graceful. So thinking about it from the masculine energy is very like focused, right? And it's needed. It's not that it's not needed, and it's not that the toxic masculine is not needed. Everything is needed in alchemy, but we need to recognize it. That's the point, is recognizing it. I didn't even recognize that I had this until this morning. I was like, whoa, there's always a learning experience, right? It's always unfolding and there's always something there. Doesn't matter how long I do this work. I've been doing it my whole life. You guys have seen 4 years of me going through the process, and just because I'm not doing spirit and coffee doesn't mean that I stop the work. I'm still doing the work and putting in the work. And there's still these little pockets to unveil and to unfold. And as we do that, we start to look at it and I say, wow, I can reshape the experience that I'm having in this moment. So when I take a shower, I can then say, are you giving yourself grace right now? Or are you trying to cut yourself off from that grace? Is that toxic masculine saying you don't deserve the grace? Just hurry up and that's it, right? Which is what I learned. I did learn it from my father, right? But as within, so without. It was a lesson that brought me to this particular point in time, 42 years later. Or, well, I was two. So 40 years later brought me to this point to recognize it, to realize it, to realize that internally I had to experience this to understand how to give myself grace on my own. Because it's true, my mother wasn't always going to be there to dry my back. So I had to learn to dry my own back and experience the comfort of the towel against my skin, to be able to enjoy the process of hot water hitting my body. That's a very, very feminine thing to do, is to allow yourself to go through these sensations and these feelings, and let the water be with you, let the towel be with you, and not experience the anxiety. And so that would actually resolve the anxiety that's within me. And the practice being, every time it shows up, asking myself those questions. And that is self awareness. That's literally being in the present moment. When we have these epiphanies, they talk about being present. That's what it is. It's recognizing these cues within us, and kind of investigating, being curious. Well, why? Why am I like that? That's why this morning, because I've been having issues and I'm like, man, I just have anxiety around getting ready for some reason. I always have. I've always like tried to rush the process and get it over with. But I'm like, how do people stay in the shower for 5 hours? Like, I can't do that. I'm like, hurry up, get out and get it going. I'm the fastest shower taker probably in the world. And I just want to get it over with, right? And getting ready is not a thing for me. I don't want to get ready. It's just too much work and I have shit to do. That's very like, I want to be focused. I want to get my shit done. And that's a very masculine trait. But when it's toxic to me and giving myself grace, there's a problem. And because anxiety showing up, right? And then what we end up doing is projecting that toxic, feminine and masculine, because both can be toxic to us. We project it to the world. We project that toxic energy to the world. So give yourself grace, or recognize on the opposite. Recognize when you're a little bit too much in the feminine principle and you're stifling your ability to focus when you need to focus. It goes both ways. But the big thing is the awareness, right? Recognizing it when it happens. So being curious about it. Like people are like, I have anxiety, let me get a pill. Now, I'm not going to tell people what to do with their life, but rather than doing that right away, going for the medication, right? Ask yourself, why am I experiencing anxiety in this moment? What exactly, where is it showing up? Or where's the depression showing up? What is the trigger that's igniting that? Dig deeper, coach yourself, ask yourself questions, or get a coach. You can get a coach too. The coach will help you through these. And you can say, how, why is it showing up for me? And then be curious about it. And then you can ask yourself the question, because the energy of the sacred feminine and masculine, it's usually one or the other. You can ask yourself, is this a toxic feminine or masculine energy that's surfacing in me? How do I resolve this? Do I need some more feminine grace? Do I need to just drop into allowing myself the grace that I deserve, the compassion that I deserve, and give it to yourself? Now, again, in therapy, they call this reparenting. Um, and they tell you, what would you want your mom to do at that time? What would you want your father to do at that time? And give it to yourself. And I love the concept of reparenting. I love the idea because we only have the markers of parents through the objective world, right? We can only see it of them objectively, but we subjectively we inhale that and we think that that's the way it has to be. That's not true. So if you were longing for parents that were this way or that way, give it to yourself. That's a great concept. I love it. And I did it because they were like, well, how would you want your mom to respond to you in this time? And I'm like, well, I would just want a hug and I would just want her to say it's going to be okay. They're like, all right, now do that for yourself. And I'm like, oh, okay. It's not so easy, but okay, I will try this. And I did. And I said, hey, give yourself grace. So this morning, I was like, oh my God, like this is just I repeat this trauma every single day, and I didn't realize that I was repeating the trauma until this morning. And I don't have to repeat it anymore because I've brought awareness to it and I could reparent myself. Now, I've said in the past the distinction or difference between the beginner and the master. The master, it's not that the master doesn't go through the pain or the suffering, it's that they know how to transform and transmute it into something meaningful faster because they've practiced. So this little scenario will not be hard for me to get over and to transform into something else. Will it ever go away? No, it doesn't go away. It's my baseline programming, right? And people say, well, we could reprogram, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, yes, if you get a head injury and all these things happen. But other than that, it's there in the subconscious mind because it was part of the base programming. But now I'm aware and there's light on it. And so now when I take a shower and I get ready and I'm getting anxiety, that's exactly what I'll do. Natalie, give yourself grace. And I'll breathe into it and I'll enjoy. I'll learn to enjoy. And eventually it'll go faster and faster and faster and faster and it'll seem like it doesn't even exist anymore. So this morning when I was doing that and I was like, wow, give yourself grace, I felt a little less anxiety than I had before. And I'm like, interesting. And I wasn't going to get on Spirit and Coffee. I wasn't going to come on here. I was like, but my soul, and this is just kind of a little tidbit, a side note, my soul, it leads. And it was like, you're going to get on now. And I'm like, well, and I'm like, okay, I listen to what my soul tells me. And my soul's like, no, get your ass on Spirit and Coffee and get on there and leave this message. Whoever is supposed to get it will get it. And hopefully it resonates with you guys, and it will, because it's going to be a message for whoever it needs to be for, because my soul's saying, yeah, you got to share this information. And I'm like, okay, here I go. So allow yourself to experience that grace. You don't need to stifle that grace within you. And I think more than ever, grace and kindness and compassion to self first is what's needed in this world at this point. If we keep not giving ourselves grace, our own self, and reparenting ourselves, you know, we're just going to keep going down this crazy rabbit hole of craziness, which is fine too. Either way is fine. But I believe that we can relearn to love ourselves and give ourselves that kindness and compassion and grace. I believe we can do it. I believe people can. And I hope people want to. And we don't have to live in total suffering, right? And anxiety. We can start to transform that energy a little bit at a time. And whatever that is for you, you figure it out. Um, but those questions are very, very helpful. Okay. So the first question is being curious about the sensation and feeling coming up in you, depression, anxiety, whatever it is, stress, all the things. And then say, why am I experiencing this in this moment? What's the true trigger here? And then asking yourself, is it a sacred feminine or sacred masculine thing that I'm experiencing? Do I need more grace or do I need more focus? Which one do I need? And then, well, I have anxiety. Maybe some people have anxiety because they're not getting things done. And so they need some more focus, but maybe they're too comfortable. And that's leading to some depression. And they're like, well, the sacred feminine's on a little bit too high. So how do I transform that energy into focus? How do I transform that energy into action and to movement? What practice can I put in place that will help me? If I had a father right now, what would my father tell me to do to get me moving and motivated? Not what they actually told you, because what they actually told you may give you more anxiety or make you panic. But what would I want if I had the ultimate great father that was just perfect? What would that father tell me? And then tell yourself that. Write it down. Write it down. He would say, you're doing a damn good job, keep going, whatever it is, right? um, you put your hard work in and you're going to have all the blessings of the world, so keep moving forward, and you talk to yourself as though you're your own parent, and trust me, it works. So I highly encourage that you try it, and I thank you guys for listening. Because like I haven't been here in a while. I just go off and on. But eventually I'm not making any promises about when I'll be back on, because I think I did and it didn't work out. So I'm just following what my soul is telling me to do at this point in my life. Wherever my soul leads, I go. Everywhere my soul is, there I am, and I follow and I just listen. And I can tell you that maybe that's something I can share on Spirit and Coffee, is that where I'm at in my life is probably one of the most magical places I've ever been in, and feel very, very, very humbled and honored. And so, but took lots and lots and lots and lots, and bestie, because you're on here, I see you, know how long it took me to get to this point in my life. A lot of hard work. It's not easy. It's not an easy process, and it's still unfolding. It'll never stop unfolding. That's the beauty. So, alchemy in motion, that's what we are. But are we allowing ourselves to sort of evolve into, or expand into what our soul is asking us to be? Or are we suffering by ignoring it? And instead of letting ourselves blossom into this beautiful lotus, right, is what you are. You're a beautiful lotus. Let yourself blossom. Um, and we got to go through the murk, and we got to go through the heartache, but there's a way to blossom. you know. The lotus will blossom even in the, comes from the murk. That's why the blossom, the lotus is a key signature symbol for transformation and spirituality, because it comes from the murk, and then out comes this beautiful flower, and that's what we are. We're these lotuses waiting to unfold, waiting to blossom and come out of the darkness into the light. So so there you go. Okay, never leaving behind the darkness. It's always with us, just like oh, Doctor Strange, right? The Patamama. No, I don't know what I think I just made that up. But the lady, what's her name? I don't know if you guys know. Anyway, you guys know what I'm talking about. She used the darkness to help transmute, to stay alive forever. But that's what we do. We use that darkness, so it's always a part of us. It's never going away. But the master can transform and transmute that energy, and that's a great character to kind of look at, to understand that she used all that energy, right, to transform it. So we need that energy to transform it, and it exists within you, and you have the opportunity to do the same. So transform it. Okay, transformers, more than meets the eye. We'll say transformers, lotus in disguise. Just kidding. Okay, so there you go. I love you guys so, 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 so much. Have the most fantastical Tuesday ever. JP, you're hot. Yeah, because it's like 75 degrees in this house. I'm just kidding. Oh my God. Like, I'm a joker too. It's funny. And I'm drinking hot coffee. So there you go. Makes sense. Yeah, I feel a little bit. Okay. So there you have it. I love you guys so, so much. Have a fantastical, magical, beautiful day ever. Reparent yourself. Give yourself grace if you need grace. I give you permission. Give yourself permission. If you need some more action, give yourself some action, and focus, and ask yourself those bigger questions. And I guarantee you will come full circle and live a rich life. Okay. So there you have it. Bye bye.